Joe Biden is the worst president in any of our lives, and probably the dumbest president in any of our lives, and maybe the worst communicator in any of our lives. Like every box that you can check for worst, Joe Biden has done it. And he's managed somehow to pick the worst and dumbest people to represent him in his administration. We have a team of incompetence, the likes of which our nation has ever seen before.
Here is the new White House press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, who is telling everybody, you don't understand. We've got inflation right where we want it.
First of all, the American Rescue Plan met the moment, and it has put us in a place where we can actually put us in a place where the American people feel can actually we can take on inflation. What I mean by that is we've seen growth, right, with as I mentioned, more than 8 million jobs, and now we're transitioning into a stable growth. The president actually wrote an op-ed to discuss that himself, lay out his plan on how we're going to bring down inflation, and so that's really important. In order to take this on, we got to have be in a good historic economic place, which is where we are right now.
We're in a good historic economic place where our choices are rapidly rising inflation or full-on recession, Clay. That's where we are.
Is she the dumbest White House spokesperson that has ever existed in the history of the country? Because, look, I know we went after Little Red Lying Hood, the former spokesperson who's now moved on to MSNBC. And I know there have been dumb White House spokespersons before, right? I'm not pretending that this is like uniquely dumb, but it feels to me like, again, I've made this argument before, but it's a great book, Team of Rivals, Doris Kearns Goodwin, about Abraham Lincoln and the cabinet he put together in 1860. Joe Biden is the worst president in any of our lives, and probably the dumbest president in any of our lives, and maybe the worst communicator in any of our lives. Like every box that you can check for worst, Joe Biden has done it. And he's managed somehow to pick the worst and dumbest people to represent him in his administration. We have a team of incompetence, the likes of which our nation has ever seen before. I mean, you just heard her try to answer a question, and we got another cut that I'm going to play for you in the next segment where she was asked about the baby formula shortage, Buck. Have you heard this yet?
Oh, yes.
I mean, and these are not questions that are unexpected, right? Like, it's not like she's going in there and suddenly somebody's saying, hey, could you break
No one's asking who the
down
prime minister of Hungary is on the spot or something, right? I mean,
or even like, hey, tell me the 5 worst trades in the history of sports. And you're like, like you're scrambling. You have no real answer for it because that's not her job. She's being asked every day about the issues that every single one of our listeners is considering, that all of you out there are prepared to have an opinion on, and she can't answer them, Buck. I mean, it's an embarrassment, and increasingly it feels, and I've been making this argument for a while now, but every day it gets more valid, it feels like the Biden administration is tanking for the overall number 1 pick in a sports context, where the incompetence is the goal on some level. I've never seen anything like it where they're so bad.
I think we have to leave open the possibility that there is no strategy. They're actually just this dumb and incompetent. I think that has – I don't believe that there's some – look at what they're doing with this, the January 6th and all these things that we knew were coming. None of this stuff is gonna make any difference. And what they're really seeing right now is their decision making. I mean, this is what's you can talk about different. You can talk about how in the housing meltdown, for example, Bush got realistically, honestly, and the Republicans got far more blame for the housing meltdown than they deserved, because anybody who understood the policies of Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and it stretches all the way back to, redlining and getting rid of redlining. And there are just decades of housing policy that had changed and had become very much more social justice oriented. And then it was, of course, commoditized by Wall Street, and they got greedy and everything else. But, Clay, that was decades in the making, the 2008 meltdown. You look at Joe Biden comes into office, you look at the $2 trillion in spending, boom, inflation takes off. You're going to tell me that's a coincidence people, you look at Democrats putting their progressive prosecutors in the major cities all across America, and the 30% increase in homicides nationwide in 2020. You're going to tell me that's a coincidence? This is cause and effect, which is why it's so damaging to Democrats. People know that they're being lied to.
I don't think there's any doubt. And what we got used to was there was consequence-free behavior, and that was the whole idea. I don't think we can underrate modern monetary theory, this idea, which was embraced by Joe Biden in the early days of his administration, that you could just spend as much money as you possibly wanted and there would be no economic impact. Well, the economic impact is real, and every single one of you are feeling it all day long. And the people who are advocating for Joe Biden's administration are the dumbest people in the country, the least qualified and able. And I really think, I'm going to play this cut for you in a sec about the baby formula shortage, and you're going to hear it, and you're going to think to yourself, how is it possible that this is the person in charge of trying to explain the Biden administration's decisions to America? Just wait. I think Joe Biden has put together the dumbest and most incompetent administration in the history of modern American politics. And that goes whether you are talking about Biden himself, who certainly is dumb and incompetent, or whether you're talking about Kamala Harris, whether you're talking about Merrick Garland, whether you are talking about Health and Human Services Secretary. We could run through the whole list. All of them are incompetent. But I thought this answer personifies on many levels the incompetence. So yesterday in the White House press briefing, I actually think that they managed to get dumber when they moved on from our prior friend who was the initial spokesperson for Joe Biden. And when you actually, Jen Psaki, of course, when you listen to this, okay, I just want you to listen to this. This feels like a kid who is getting called on that hasn't done the basic level of homework. And if you wonder, how did we ever get to the point where we have a baby formula shortage in America? It's because the dumbest and most incompetent people are representing us right now, and they aren't able to handle the simplest and most important of tasks. And so I want you to listen to this. It's not unexpected that people, given that baby formula shortage is real, and many of you can't find it, it's not unexpected that this question could arise. I want you to listen to this incompetent response. And what you're not going to see is Karine Jean-Pierre goes into the press briefing with a binder that is like 1,000 pages so she can look up the answer to any question. She can't actually answer it herself. She has to tab to it and then just read directly out of talking points. I've never seen anything like this before. Certainly Jen Psaki didn't do it, but listen.
So I have two questions on baby formula. So first, what is the latest update the White House has received on the current infant formula situation across the country?
Yeah, let me see if I have anything new for you on that. I think it's been a couple of days since we have been asked that question. Okay. I don't have anything new. I know we made some announcements last week. I just don't have them in front of me. But if you want to come back and we'll talk through the things that we have been able to do in the past, the most recent activities that we've done.
Clay, I got something new on the baby formula shortage. How did we get to a place where there was a shortage? There's a few things that people should know, and we'll talk about this in a moment when we come back. It involves the federal government being incompetent, the Biden administration being asleep at the wheel. Nap time for Biden, sippy cup, blanket over the knees. You know how it goes.